The greatest orc warlord in the history of the galaxy attacked the same planet twice, left both times without winning, got decapitated by a space wolf, had his head bolted onto a bigger body, and somewhere out there right now, he genuinely believes he's winning. That's not a comeback story. That's a medical condition. The question isn't whether Ghazghkull is the biggest failure in orc history. The question is why every orc in the galaxy is too scared, or too stupid, to tell him. Tell me in the comments, is Ghazghkull running the longest con in orc history, or is he just really good at losing slowly? Subscribe if you think you know the answer. You probably don't. Here's the thing about Ghazghkull Mag Uruk Thraka, prophet of the Wa, chosen of Gork and Mork, self-declared messiah of every green skin in the galaxy. His entire identity was built on a bolter round, not metaphorically, literally. Before he was a prophet, before he was the greatest warlord since Ulanor, before a single orc followed him into battle. He was a nobody. Goth warrior who took a bullet to the skull that destroyed 30% of his brain. His own mob dragged him, bleeding and barely conscious, to Mad Doc Grotznik, and they traded him, the future savior of Orkdom, for 3 teeth and a choppa. 3 teeth. That's the going rate for the Messiah. Less than a used vehicle, less than a decent lunch. Grotznik cracked the skull open, replaced what was missing with adamantium plates, wire, and squig sinew, and bolted the whole thing shut. When Ghazghkull woke up, he had a vision, a calling, a divine mission from Gork and Mork themselves to unite all orcs and lead the greatest Wa the galaxy had ever seen. Imperial historians have spent decades arguing about what actually happened in that surgery. Half of them believe the trauma unlocked real, latent psychic powers. The other half believe Ghazghkull is, and I'm quoting the official record here, an unusually delusional orc. Both explanations lead to the same place: the visions, the prophecy, the divine mandate. All of it came from getting his brain scrambled and rebuilt by a doc who was, by any reasonable standard, completely insane. Ghazghkull Thraka is basically a man who had a stroke and woke up convinced he was chosen by God. And then everyone believed him, because he was 8 feet tall and very good at hitting things. The Second War for Armageddon began in 941, M41. Ghazghkull arrived with the largest orc invasion force the Imperium had faced in centuries. Hive after hive fell. The planetary defense was crumbling. By every metric that matters on a battlefield, he was winning. Then Commissar Sebastian Yarrick showed up. Yarrick was a human man in his 70s, one arm replaced with a power claw, fueled entirely by personal animosity. He took whatever troops he could scrape together, dug into Hades' hive, and refused to move. No tactical masterstroke, no secret weapon. Hades' hive fell anyway. The orcs eventually overran it, but the distraction bought enough time for the Blood Angels to arrive and break the invasion. Yarrick lost the hive. He won the war. And somehow, that wasn't the humiliating part for Ghazghkull. The Blood Angels eventually arrived and drove the orcs off-planet. But the damage Yarrick caused wasn't military. He made Ghazghkull doubt. Armageddon became, in Ghazghkull's own account, a quagmire, a place where a man old enough to retire had neutralized the momentum of the prophet of Gork and Mork. Ghazghkull left. He told himself he was studying the enemy, learning how the Imperium fights, preparing something bigger. He was humiliated by a human grandfather running on pure hatred and a second-hand prosthetic. You won't hear that part in the WAG songs. The truth doesn't rhyme with the prophet's dogma. He spent the next years building alliances. He struck a deal with Warlord Nazdrag for access to teleporta technology. Because if you're the prophet of Gork and Mork, you still have to negotiate for decent tech like everyone else. When Yarrick came hunting him across the stars, A decade of pursuit ending on the world of Golgotha, Ghazghkull turned the whole planet into a trap and crushed the entire Imperial crusade. He was good at that. Individual moves, individual victories. The war, though, the war was still lost. He came back 57 years later. The Third War for Armageddon, 998. M41. If the Second War was large, the Third was incomprehensible. Ghazghkull brought 3 other major warlords under his banner and 400 warbands behind them. The Imperium responded with forces from more than 25 Space Marine chapters, dozens of Astra Militarum regiments, multiple Titan legions. The entire planet became a machine designed to kill as many things as possible, running at full capacity indefinitely. Ghazghkull conquered half the surface. He was winning by the numbers that count in war. And then he stopped. Not because the Imperium outflanked him, not because some brilliant commander found his weakness, not even because Yarrick showed up again. Though Yarrick did show up again, because Yarrick always showed up again. Ghazghkull got bored. According to Makari, his own personal grot, the only witness whose account survives, the prophet of Gork and Mork, had been suffering from constant headaches and growing frustration with the stalemate. 6 decades of preparation, the largest warg in living memory. And it had turned into a grinding war of attrition that wasn't exciting anymore. So he left his knobs in charge, left a billion orcs still fighting, left a planet that was half his, and went to find something more interesting to do. Ghazghkull is basically that contractor who convinces everyone the job is going great, tears out every wall in the place, burns through the budget, and vanishes halfway through because he stopped feeling it. Except the house is a hive world, the rubble is made of billions of corpses, and he's already advertising his next project somewhere else in the galaxy. This is the part that should bother people more than it does. The greatest military mind in orc history, the figure orcs compare to the gods themselves, abandoned the capstone achievement of his entire existence because he had a headache and the war wasn't fun anymore. The Imperium didn't beat him. Yarrick didn't beat him. His own attention span beat him. That's not a prophet executing a plan. That's a very large, very dangerous child who got tired of his toy. After Armageddon, he disappeared into the wider galaxy. Not in defeat. Orcs don't process defeat the way other species do, but in a kind of restless wandering. Conquering worlds, gathering more greenskins to his cause, building toward the Great Wow, the one that was supposed to make everything before it looked like a rehearsal. And then Ragnar Blackmane found him. The Space Wolf champion engaged Ghazghkull in single combat. They fought for days, 2 monsters operating at the edge of what biology allows, neither willing to stop. And then Ragnar Blackmane, one space marine against the prophet of the orc gods, decapitated Ghazghkull Mag Uruk Thraka. The head came off. Completely. Ghazghkull was, in any normal universe, dead. An enterprising Groot retrieved the head. Brought it back to Grotznik, the same mad doc who had rebuilt him after the original bolter wound, still operating, still cutting, apparently ageless in the way that only truly unhinged people manage to be. Grotznik had a plan. He always had a plan. He transplanted Ghazghkull's head onto a new body, a bigger one, an enormous frame, purpose-built, designed to house a prophet who clearly couldn't keep his previous body intact. Sheets of green lightning filled the sky as the surgery completed. Ghazghkull woke up. His followers treated it as divine confirmation. If Gork and Mork refused to let him die, if death itself bent around their chosen champion, then surely the Great War was real. The destiny was true. The visions from the surgery were messages and not symptoms. The less comfortable reading. This is the second time Grotznik has reconstructed him from catastrophic damage. The pattern is established. Ghazghkull fails spectacularly. Grotznik rebuilds him bigger. Everyone calls it a miracle. He's not a messiah sent by the gods. He's Mad Doc Grotznik's favorite ongoing experiment, a bespoke trophy that keeps getting smashed and rebuilt larger every time it breaks. Every time Ghazghkull dies like the failure he is, Grotznik just tightens a new bolt and calls it Divine Will. Now here's the defense, the one every Ghazghkull defender eventually reaches for, because they have to, because the alternative is too depressing. The argument goes, Ghazghkull isn't failing at Armageddon, he's using it. The second war was reconnaissance. Study the enemy, understand Imperial response patterns. The third war was a forge. Temper the way against the greatest resistance available. Build something harder. Every withdrawal was deliberate. Every defeat was a lesson extracted at acceptable cost. The Great War isn't about one planet. It's something the Imperium can't comprehend yet. It's the kind of argument that gets written in Black Library novels and sounds completely convincing in the moment. The problem is the results. He launched the Second War in 941, M41. The Third War ground to a halt in 998, M41. Nearly 60 years of the most intensive military effort any orc has ever organized, 2 campaigns that each reshaped that entire region of space, and Armageddon is still there, still imperial, still standing, still worth fighting over again. The Great War hasn't happened. The unification of Orkdom, billions of greenskins marching as one toward a single purpose, hasn't happened. What has happened is 2 very costly visits to the same planet, 1 decapitation, 1 body transplant, and a lot of wandering through the void collecting more orcs who believe in a plan that keeps not materializing. Every warlord who ever lost a war had someone explaining why it was actually part of the plan. The plan, every time, was whatever explanation fit the wreckage best. But orc biology makes this particular self-deception permanent. Orcs don't experience failure the way other species do. There is no version of defeat that the orc brain categorizes as, I set out to accomplish something, and I did not accomplish it. Every battle that ends with orcs still alive is, functionally, a win. Every withdrawal is repositioning. Every loss is just a pause before the next fight. The orc brain simply wasn't built with a room for that thought. Ghazghkull's brain, specifically, has been modified twice and transplanted once. What's left in there? What drives the visions? What generates the certainty? What makes him stand in front of billions of orcs and say the gods have chosen us is a collection of adamantium plates, squig sinew, and whatever the surgery left behind, where 30% of his brain used to be. He cannot course correct. The hardware isn't there. This is what makes him genuinely dangerous, not despite the failure, but because of it. An orc who could recognize defeat might eventually stop, might redirect, might decide that Armageddon isn't worth a third visit. Ghazghkull can't make that calculation. He will keep coming, keep calling it destiny. Keep building the war that will finally, this time, change everything. And now, a 4th war is coming. Armageddon, again. The same planet, the same orcs, the same certainty from the same damaged brain that this is the time, that Gork and Mork are watching, that nothing that happened before counts as a reason to stop. Somewhere in the void, Ghazghkull is coming. Enormous, rebuilt, absolutely certain. He doesn't know he's already lost. He can't know. That's not humility. It's biology. The hardware that would let him reach that conclusion was sold for 3 teeth and a choppa a long time ago, and whatever Grotznik put in its place doesn't work that way. The most terrifying thing about Ghazghkull Thraka isn't the size, or the wah, or the billions of greenskins who follow him into fire without a second thought. It's that nothing, not defeat, not decapitation, not 60 years of the same war producing the same result, has changed anything at all. He will come back. He always comes back. And he will never, not once, understand why that's the saddest thing about him.